So excited to be interviewing. Huge fan. I actually saw you guys perform at the Observatory North Park in 2016.
Wow.
Yeah, in San Diego. So that was a
Yeah,
long time ago.
that is a while ago. Although actually it's only like 2 tours ago.
Oh,
Like,
okay. Yeah, because you guys had quite a bit, like a break in there of a few years. I saw that.
yeah, I mean we like our last tour, like big tour like this was 2018. And we would have definitely gone out sooner, but then the unnameable happened.
Yeah, yeah. Which I feel like you've had used that as a lot of inspo for your new album.
Yes, for sure.
How was the
Sorry,
show?
I'm just trying to like fix the lighting situation here because it
Oh
seems
yeah.
very dim. But there we go. That looks a bit better. Sorry.
How was your show at the Belly Up? I'm so bummed.
It was awesome. It was super, like, yeah, just really cool venue, great stuff. They have this giant great white, like model of a great white
Yeah,
hanging from the roof with red eyes that kind of gave me
yeah.
nightmares
That
a little
just
bit.
stares at you the whole time.
Yeah, I was just like, guys, that shark is coming for all of us. Like, it just had this foreboding kind of, you know, sneaking up the back.
Yeah,
But no, it was great. It was like, it was sold out, like great energy from the audience. Sweaty good time.
yeah. You guys have a lot of fans in San Diego. It's really cool. People, I mean, it's like a great, like groovy, perfect, like soul, neo soul sound that we just like love out here.
All right, awesome.
So I just have a few questions for you. It should go pretty quick.
Great.
First question is, I see that you have a few stops left on your tour, and I was just
Yes.
curious, as I know that you guys lived in New York for quite a few years. Do you have a favorite place to play in the US, or is it New York City still? Because I saw you guys you're even live streaming from there, right? So that will be really cool.
Yeah. I mean, New York is always feels good because it's, you know, where basically the band came up, you know, I mean, and we lived there for about 14 years.
Okay.
Um, so it always feels special because we have just, yeah, like definitely New York is bigger for us than any other market. Like just more people come to our shows out there. But there's something about like, I mean, we always have a really great show in Detroit. Like the audience is always like a lot of fun. Um, you know, we always love like getting to the West Coast. You know, there's always something
Okay.
about getting to like San Francisco, LA. I mean, the Pacific Northwest too. But especially like, you know, when you've been going through and everything's kind of like heading towards winter and it's cold and you get further south and it just feels nice
Nice.
outside again.
Yeah.
And I have a sort of like romantic fascination with the desert a bit, with like the Southwest. So I love being like around Phoenix, and tomorrow we're going to be in Santa Fe, and I love Santa Fe.
Oh, nice.
So it's always, yeah, it's always great to be in that part of the US because to me it's beautiful.
Oh, awesome. You guys live in Europe now, around Germany, correct?
Yes, we sort of halfway through the pandemic in beginning of 2021, we moved to the south of Germany to a town called Constance, which is where Patty grew up,
Okay.
because we had our second kid, and it just like New York in the pandemic was, you know,
Yeah.
everyone heard
Yeah.
about it. But especially having a kid and just trying to like find ways to entertain them and give them like a bit of normalcy was difficult. So when we had our second kid, we decided to move back because Patty's whole family's still there,
Oh,
and
nice.
it's, you
That's
know,
nice
it's
with
like
kids, family.
like it definitely doesn't have the same kind of, you know, for want of a better word, like verve and like whatever
Yeah.
is New York, but
Yeah.
it's great quality of life, you know. And for us, it was just like, look, we've done this for 14 years now. Um, you know, let's give ourselves like good quality of life for a while.
Yeah, I get that. I mean, I lived in the city, like downtown San Diego, when the pandemic did hit, and I was like trapped. I was in a studio apartment, so I like
Yeah.
understand. Like, I need to get out of the city. It was
Yeah.
a whole
No,
like,
it's crazy. And at least in San Diego, I mean, like you guys weren't allowed to go to the beaches for a while, right?
yeah, and you could still like walk around outside and stuff, but yeah, just like being in the city, it wasn't like total lockdown. I think New York was definitely at a bigger lockdown than we were.
Right. Yeah. I mean, just because I guess everyone's like smushed together a lot more, you know?
Yeah,
But yeah, I mean, it was crazy. I'm glad to be on the other side of that, hopefully.
yeah, same. So I have kind of a random question. I guess, who did you grow up listening to? And did any of those artists like inspire your music today?
Yeah, I mean, I would say all the music I've listened to throughout my life that affected me in some meaningful kind of way has inspired what I do. You know, I feel like, um, when I was growing up, like I was born in '83. And so, the early part of my life was definitely, I was absorbing a lot of the music that I guess people compare St. Lucia to in general, the kind of like '80s classics and stuff. And my parents
Mhm.
listened to a lot of music around the house. And also there was like African music, like South African music that was very, inspiring to me. And then in my teenage years, I went down the whole kind of grunge, Britpop rabbit hole. And like, I feel like the band that really kind of changed the way that I listened to music was Radiohead.
Okay.
Like I remember my parents got me a computer for my for a birthday of mine. I think it was like my 14th birthday. Because they basically they met some guy and he was like some young dude who seemed cool to them, and they asked him, "Oh, what should we get our son?" Because I was starting to get into some like some rock and roll and grunge and stuff like that, and
Mhm.
they got me that record. And at first I hated it, but it was the start of the Christmas weekend, and so none of the shops are open, so I couldn't return it until Monday. So I
Oh,
just ended up listening to it over and over just because I was like, okay, well, I have nothing else to do. And
I'll
then
to
I
do.
just
Yeah.
and then I just fell in love with the album, and I was just like, wow, that's crazy that I could have like not liked this at first listen, but then it revealed all these layers, and that completely changed the way that I listen to music. So I would say, I'm influenced by both like great pop songs that are instantaneously enjoyable and maybe might reveal some layers down the line, but sometimes don't. And then also that side of music where it's more layered and it has more kind of, it's enjoyable in the long run because you discover new things about it.
Yeah.
But then also there's like the thing I sort of always talk about is like the thing I'm most inspired by is it's more like the approach. Like certain artists, like if you think of Prince, if you think of whatever, Michael Jackson, if you think of um Peter Gabriel, if you think of the Beatles, like, basically bands that like, or artists that just did their thing and followed their vision, or Kate Bush as well is like a huge one for me,
Yeah.
that just followed their vision no matter what. It was like, no matter what was happening in the industry, they just went down their own like journey. And it was not about trend. It was not about any of that. It's more just about some kind of inner artistic vision and journey like that inspires me.
Yeah, that totally. I have actually to play off of that. The song Shame is like a hypnotic spooky bop. I feel like it's very hypnotic to me. And it was placed in the album between like two. I loved Utopia because it was very much for me like a story. In the way you placed Shame, just like was the crescendo on all of that, because you had it like you have Giving the Night, and then you have the parentheses, and then which is like an instrumental, which was kind of like bringing you in, I feel like, to like a calm state. But then you have Shame thrown in there where it's like almost a late night anxiety attack song because it's like a little hypnotic. And then you have
Yeah,
like another calming instrumental after that. And then you kind of have like a like we're gonna make the
we're
next
gonna
day.
make it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And I
yeah.
know, am I interpreting that correctly, or do you have anything to add on
Yeah, I mean, I think you're totally right. I mean,
that?
obviously you hit the nail on the head, but I think the biggest thing with Utopia was like trying to, because we pretty much made a whole other album before we even made Utopia, and bits of that album, like it was more like what you would sort of imagine a pandemic album to be like, not like depressing necessarily, but just a little bit more kind of just kind of different for us.
Mhm.
And that's the next thing that we have to work on finishing. But then when we started making these songs for Utopia, it was like immediately felt like a breath of fresh air and more sort of like what the world needs to hear right now. Songs like Rocket on My Feet, Another Lifetime, Golden
Yeah.
Age, like kind of vibrant songs that still have a little bit of a melancholy to them. But it was important to me to also balance it out with, to have hopefulness, but then also acknowledge what we went through
Yeah.
in the pandemic and all the like crazy stuff and the way we felt and being depressed at times and being isolated. And yeah, Shame was just like, I just thought there was a little, just we don't have to get super into it, but it's just, how certain people were ashamed during the pandemic, and we just didn't think that was right.
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and that was that's kind of that side of it, you know, where there was this like darkness flowing through things, but it's always important to also look up.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I really loved that. I feel like it was like almost theatrical where I was like, ooh, this is you feel the emotions throughout it, and it was great.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate that.
So speaking of utopia, that's like I love that word because I'm a Pisces, so I'm a daydreamer, and utopia is like imagining that like perfect place to be in. And I was
Yeah.
wondering, what's your utopia?
Well, to me, the interesting thing about Utopia is, you know, on the one hand, it's this perfect place, but on the other hand, it's a nightmare, you know, because one person's utopia is another person's nightmare. And to actually exist in a utopia is you're basically forcing other people that don't want to have that utopia to live in your utopia. You know what I
Right, I
mean?
did not even know that dark side of utopia.
Well, that's it. Because like, for example, like, you know, when just from a political standpoint, like when people imagine like a free market society or a communist, like, you know, political system, you know, it's always like, if only we just had purely this thing, like a free market, or purely communism where everyone has to share everything with everyone, you're forcing other people that don't want that to live in that same place. You know what I mean? So
Yeah, I got it.
to me, like the utopia, and in a way, it speaks to like us trying to achieve a balance on a record as well. The utopia is actually, we are living in the utopia because we are living in the fight between the two extremes. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of like, to me, that's what makes life interesting, actually, is like not having everything exactly the way you want. And somehow when you do have everything the way that you want, it's never satisfying. In some way you're bored and you want to go somewhere else or do something else.
Totally.
You know,
grass is always greener.
exactly.
Yeah. Ooh, okay, cool. Wow, learned something new. I was like, oh, I like that though. That's such a deeper word than what I was thinking it is. So, and that does fully encompass the album, which is perfect.
Oh, thank you.
So I heard that you probably when around you were having your kids, do you have like two boys, two girls, or?
It's two boys.
Oh, nice. Are they, how old are they?
So the oldest is turning 5 at the end of the year, December 20th, and the oldest is Indy, and the youngest Charlie's turning 2 next week, actually.
Oh, nice.
And they're on the road with us. We're at a friend's place in Phoenix right now, and they're outside swimming, potentially watching TV.
Is it warm there still?
It's actually kind of chilly today, but like the sun is so strong that like when you're in the sun, it's like you're totally fine.
Yeah, that's fun. Do they like being on tour?
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's definitely more challenging than touring without kids, for sure. But the interesting side effect is that, you know, basically we just realized that to not go completely insane, you basically have to just focus on them and family and then doing the show. Like you can't, like usually I'd be trying to like work on music or something, but with them, it's like you have to, and if you do that, it's great, you know. And of course there's stressful times during the day, but generally we'll like, you know, try and find a nice playground if the weather's nice outside, or just go do something outside for them. And I think when they get to do that, like yesterday, for example, we had this day off in around Solana Beach, and we found a really great BMX track, and Indy's like really good at cycling. And so we went there and had a great day, and then went to the beach. And on those days, it's awesome.
Yeah.
And then, but the interesting side effect of it is that everything in the past that would annoy us or would be difficult on the touring front, now everything's just a pleasure. It's just great. Like everyone's getting along. It's just awesome. There's very little like infighting or anything, because we have that like kind of difficult aspect of like having the kids on the tour. That's like, you know, that everything else is framed. That's like a frame that frames everything else in like a very nice, positive way.
Yeah, it sounds like you're keeping it almost like a family vacay, but you get to play shows. That's fun.
Yeah, no, exactly.
That's awesome. I know that you guys took a like social media hiatus for a few years, like 2019-ish. Was that because of you had the kids and stuff like that, and you just were focusing on that? Or was it just like scroll over it? I get it. Social media is tedious and a lot.
Yeah, I mean, it's a bit of all of it. You know, I think everyone feels it on some level. If you're any amount of self-aware, you
Yeah.
probably feel it. But yeah, no, it was just, you know, I would like go to playgrounds with Indy and I would just see parents like scrolling on their phones. And I would think, you know, I feel like when you have your first kid, you're extremely idealistic about it. You know, you kind of want to do everything right and be like the best parent and stuff. And obviously I still want to do that. But you sort of realize more and more that there's a balance and, you know, they also have to exist in an imperfect world. And that's part of something that they have to learn, you know, but like, I don't know. I also think that there's something like when you're like, I felt in like a very creatively and artistically vulnerable place. Like I just didn't know where I wanted to take St. Lucia next. And I found that like the more I looked at social media, the more like negative and self-conscious I became about what I was doing, especially at the start of the creative process, because it's like that's when you're at your most vulnerable. It's kind of like when a child is really small. And if you judge like a small child on the standards of like a grown-up, they'll fail like instantly, you know? And so I think it's really important at the inception phase to try and like separate yourself from like everyone else that's already released their record and is doing really well and stuff, and kind of try and just nurture that thing. And so I think it was partially that, partially like having the kids. But I feel like we have more of a balanced view about it now, where it's like, I think it's really great on certain levels. I think it's terrible on certain levels. But I do think in many ways it's like an inevitable kind of part of human evolution in a way, you know. Anything in history that's connected us more has stuck around. But I think eventually the whole algorithmic thing is going to go away, like with instead of having a chronological feed, it's like an algorithmic feed kind of thing.
Yeah,
because that kind of stilts like actual real person-to-person communication. But like the direct messaging part of social media, I think is amazing, because I just hear from fans all the time about how much they love the show, and it just like that is awesome.
Yeah, it definitely like helps build a community, which is so important, like around what you love. But there are negative aspects of it where it's like,
well, it's just frustrating now. Like, you know, anytime I post a photo, like you just know that like barely anyone that follows you is seeing it, you know? But I'm just like, I'm not going to do what you want me to do just because like it's going to feed your algorithm. You know, it's just like, who am I then? I'm just like another, it's annoying, but
totally. I get it. Well, that's nice. I bet a break was nice. Sometimes I take like a month off and I'm like, oh, just like the stress goes away.
No, it's great. I think it's super important to do
that. So I read in Riff Magazine, you did an interview with them in February, I think, and you said that this is like the most music that you guys have mixed and ready to go than you've ever had. So I did hear you mention at the beginning that you're getting another album prep. Like, what? That's so awesome. And I'm just wondering what's next for St. Lucia.
I mean, you know, basically the tour, we have a little less than 2 weeks left of this tour, and then we're gonna head back to Germany and just try and finish up the new music, you know. And always after a tour, there's new, you know, you've just seen so much in such a short space of time and experienced so much, and there's always some new things that come out. So it's just kind of like putting ourselves in a position where we can harness that energy and finish things up, and then hopefully we'll be releasing new music next year, you know, and then hopefully touring more. Like this has honestly been the most fun we've ever had on tour, like in terms of the shows have just been so much fun. I think the band's just feeling really good. Like our chemistry on stage has been great, and I just want to keep doing that, you know. And it's, I don't know, I just see people smiling and being happy and dancing in the audience, and it brings us so much joy. We want to keep doing it.
Oh, that's awesome. Yes, we'd love to have you back here in San Diego. You have a huge fan base, and I'd want to see you next time.
Yeah, no, we'd love to come back. We love it.
Such a good show. You guys put on such a good show. It's so much fun. And I'm still sitting with Utopia. I really love it a lot. It's such a good album.
Thank you.
I'm excited to see what you have next, and appreciate you taking the time out to meet with us at Girl Music.
It's absolutely my pleasure.
And I think that unless you have anything else you want to promote or put out there, I think that's
no, I mean, we're very happy and appreciative to be able to still exist as a musical project. You know, like there was definitely times there during the pandemic where I think us and probably everyone in the band like wondered if we're going to be able to do this again, and just to be able to be back and be able to do this and play for people and have people come to our shows who care about our music. And, it means a lot. And especially now, like people are just quitting touring left, right, and center,
Yeah.
and to be able to still do it. And I don't know, it just gives us life. Like we love it.
Yeah. I know that is a scary thing with the tours being canceled. It's
Yeah.
like, do you notice anything that's different about touring prior to the pandemic versus now? Is there like a big difference?
I mean, not necessarily in the audiences. Like I've almost felt like there's more people have more energy to give at the shows, like the audiences. But I mean, it's definitely way more expensive. Like we're making way less money. Like we're just better than breaking even on this tour.
Wow.
But we're sort of fortunate that we get to do like quite a lot of private shows, or a decent amount of private shows that help us fund, doing this.
Yeah.
And we could cut costs a lot by just taking less instruments on the road and not having good production and stuff. But I think for us, the most important thing is like trying to make the vision happen to where it feels like it's doing the music justice, and where, I think it sucks if you go to a show and you just feel like they're just trying to save money. Like I think it's important.
Yeah.
And, it's definitely coming from a somewhat privileged position that we can do that, but we are taking a hit and making a sacrifice in order to make that happen. But, I'm not saying that in order for someone to feel pity for me. It's just like, we love it and we want to inspire people and we want to inspire ourselves. And to do that, we have to believe in the power of the vision of the show and just do it, and then believe that it will lead to other things. That's what we do.
Yeah. I mean, that's a good way to do it. I think putting it in the front end, and then everything will just come.
Yeah, we'll see.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Jean. It was so nice to talk to you.
All right. Love you so, you too.
Have a wonderful rest of your tour.
Thank you. Have a good day.